Well, hey there, my friend. So glad that you're with me on the podcast today. I've got a great friend of mine who actually lives just down the road from me, but we're actually on Zoom today. So we're not in person. But my friend Julie Bagamary, incredible fiber artist, incredible person, incredible lover of Jesus. Julie, I'm so glad that you're here with me today.
Thank you, Matt. I'm so honored to be here and I'm super excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. Usually I just got through interviewing somebody on the podcast. It's like in the UK, and I'm like, you're right here in the Asheville area. This is great. This is great. For those folks who don't know you yet and have not heard your story, why don't you tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and what you do creatively?
Okay, I am a quilted artist and I live here in Fairview, North Carolina. I am a mom. I've been a mom of four children. My husband and I have been married for 41 years, and we were foster parents for 12 of those years. So we've had a lot of kids in and out of our home. I've done a lot of different art, but I've really just honed in on fabric. That is my thing.
I love that. I love that. And we got to know each other. How many years has it been now that we've known each other? 5, 6
I
years,
don't know.
maybe more.
Someone invited me to the small group that you had at your studio years ago. And honestly, I went there and I participated and I thought, I don't know about these people.
Who is this guy? Right.
I knew they loved Jesus, but there was just a lot of freedom in things that I had never experienced.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was so fun. I remember for those folks who may not know, when I first moved to Asheville, um, the Lord told me, He said, "You build the people, and I'll build the building." And I was looking for a building, and He was looking for me to build people. And so we started this little small group. I initially started it because you came to the one at the studio. I initially started it at this bar in town, and then that was a kind of a Christian nightclub kind of place, and then called Creatures Cafe. Remember that downtown on
I don't. I
yeah, it
don't.
was that was cool. And then I moved it to my office at the church, and then we moved it to the studio, and it was just like it continued to grow, and it was just a cool time where we'd come together every Monday night and just share life together. But that's where I got to see what you were doing, and as a fellow fiber artist, I fell in love with all the beautiful things that you create, and just loved seeing your heart get awakened to all that. God's been doing some incredible things in your life over the last few years that we've known each other. I mean, it's been incredible. Walk people kind of through what life has been like, this journey over these last few years as you've kind of really stepped into all that God's created you to be.
Oh, wow. Because I was familiar with you, I would listen to your podcast and I would listen to things you had online, always feeling like that's great. And then I would get to a place where it's like, okay, I can't go that far. And so I would back up, and so um, one spring, I tearfully, very tearfully and scared, I signed up for the Creative Thrive Experience course. It's the first one you had.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe I was spending that much money on a course for my art because it's like that was just crazy. And I did it. I mean, and I jumped in with both feet. I did every bit of homework. I did all the journaling. I did all the assignments. I did it all. And it rocked my world. It just opened up a whole new thing for me. And the biggest thing for me was looking at the lies that I had believed for so long. And I so clearly remember passing my husband in the hall of our home and just saying excitedly, I just discovered another lie. And he was just like, okay.
Is this a good
But it,
thing or not? I don't know.
it
Right.
almost became a game for me, to just really cooperate with the Father and ask him where are the lies, and to replace them with truth. And I began forming affirmations, which is something I had done before,
Yeah.
but these were just based on more based on God's word and what he had for me, and just really starting to live fearlessly,
Mm, that's so
scared, but
beautiful.
doing it, and I began to start taking my business of art seriously. I had just kind of played at it until that point, and shortly after I got into the course, I had a piece sell that sold for the course, and it was like, okay. So things just kept happening, and I kept meeting these people from all over the world, and then I got into the mentoring program, and um, gosh, it's just
Yeah,
been,
it's been a
I just feel
ride.
like I've been running wide open, you know.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that day because I had known you for a little while, and you came into the studio and you're like, "This is really incredible! Like this course has really changed my life." And I was like, "That's awesome!" And you're like, "No, I mean, like you don't even know." So it's been so cool to see that. And then I remember you took the book Unlocking the Heart of the Artist. Didn't you? Was it Unlocking or Creative to Thrive? You had
No,
the
great.
couple of small groups at your house, and
I did.
um, I mean, you've just been such a poster child, I think, for kingdom transformation, and not only having your life changed, but also then turning around and using that to release transformation to others. And I just love that's fun, isn't it?
It is, you know, and God placed within my heart. I'm a teacher at heart, and I love, you know, when God does something in my life and it just changes me,
Yeah,
I can't help from sharing that with other people.
yeah,
And that's, you know, I want to share what God has done in my life because I believe He can do it for others too. And
that's
that's
right.
exciting to me.
That's right. If God did it in me, He'll do it in you. To do it again,
Yeah.
Lord. So,
Yeah.
well, one of the things I did not know about you when we first, started getting to know each other is that, you and your husband had been foster parents, that you were really passionate about showing the love of God to kids that were in need and in crisis and that sort of thing. And part of this journey for you, as you've kind of woken up to who God's created you to be as an artist and as a person, as a woman, is realizing that, hey, maybe there's more to this foster parenting thing than I was initially thinking. So roll back the tape a little bit and walk us through what's happening with that, because you're walking into this beautiful season of convergence that I just think is really incredible.
Gosh. We were foster parents for about 12 years. And when that ended, I just saw that as a closed door, a
Right.
segment, a season. And about a year or so ago, the Lord um, called me to write a book, actually through a question and answer on the live within the Created Thrive mentoring program. And honestly, when you answered my question, I wanted to publish some respite guidelines I had finally put together. People have been asking for it. And you said, "Oh, I think you need to write a book." I mean, actually, you went into this thing. I felt like the spirit just kind of came all over you. And I was driving down the road listening, going, "No, no,
I'm
I'm
not
not."
doing that.
And so I wrestled with the Lord on that, and
Mm.
my husband Randy said, "Well, let's at least pray about it." Well, okay. So um, that started a process that, I felt like the Lord wanted to use our journey to help other people learn from some of the things that we wish we had known, and just encourage people and just share our story um, through that. I've never written a book before.
Yeah, so talk about that process, because I think a lot of people have this dream of writing a book, and you think, okay, can I do this? I don't know, but I mean, it's not all unicorns and puff pastry here. I mean, it's quite the process, isn't it, of doing that, especially for the first time.
It is. Honestly, I wrote. The Lord began to wake me up 3 and 4 in the morning, and
Mm,
I had a journal and I write things down, and it got to the point where I would get up and I go back to bed, and I get up and go back to bed, where I just would stay on the couch some nights because it was like He was just telling me what to write. Um, but putting that all together was so much harder than I ever dreamed, and I wound up hiring a writing coach to walk me through the process. And honestly, the first time she read what I had written, she said to me, "So far, I don't want to read what you have to say." And it stung. It
yeah,
stung so bad. Um, but she continued to say, "But I can help you
yeah,
write what you want to say." And so she really helped me through that process. We met weekly on Zoom, and some weeks were, "Yay, I did good," and some weeks were, "This isn't so good."
try again, right?
And I'm telling you, it was a grueling process. And the Lord continued to wake me up in the middle of the night and tell me things. And um, I I spent hours every day writing when, sitting myself still before a computer is not comfortable for me. I would rather be playing in the fabric and just doing improvisational art is what I
Sure.
would do. And so it was very uncomfortable. Um, and there were a lot of tears.
The thing I love about you, Julie, is that you're not, unwilling to seek outside help when you know that God is leading you to do something. And I think, I know so many people over the years that said, oh, yeah, God's given me a book, or there's a book I'm supposed to write. And yet they don't have the skills that they need to do it to make it really great. And so instead of making it really great and hiring a coach like you did or whatever, they just kind of put it out the best way they know how. And they wonder, well, why is God not blessing this? And I mean, where did that come from in you? Have you always been like that? Like, I'm going to ask for help, or is that kind of a new thing that you've had faith to do, or what?
I don't know. I think I've come to realize more and more that it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
It's actually good. It actually allows somebody else to use their giftedness to help me. I mentor other art students and I teach as well. And I'm thankful to have that opportunity to build into their life. And I really feel like my coach was thankful to have that input into my life as well.
Yeah. One of my favorite coaches from afar that I read and listen to a lot is a guy named Dan Sullivan. And he's got a new book out that it talks about, you don't need to, it's called Who, Not How, that we don't always need to find out how to do things. We need to find out who can do that for us, or who can, like you're saying, enable us to do that thing. And I just really, really believe that, because what happened is with this process, your timeline got really shortened because you asked a coach and because you were able to do that. So what's the dream? What's God put on your heart for this book? What's next with it, and all of that?
Oh, I'll be honest. In the beginning, I just wanted to write it, throw it out there, and move on. That was
I did it. Check mark, right? That's it.
well, yeah, because I knew the Lord was calling me to do it. And, there was a lot of healing for me in the process. And even if the book was just for that, it was worth it. But my desire is that other people who are considering to be foster parents, or people that are already in the game, or those people that are walking alongside foster parents and are wanting to help them and get some ideas of things that might be helpful to them. My desire is to inspire them. My desire is to also help them see that some of the things that they're going through, that I get it. Somebody gets it. It's, so often when you're in walking in that season, people, good intentioned people come alongside you and say, oh, well, if you do this, if you'll do that. And, every situation's different. And we're talking about dealing with children who've had great trauma.
Yeah.
And, there's not a one size fits all. And, it actually hurts when people come in and say, well, this is what I did and you will do that and it'll work. Well, I tried that and it didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, somewhere along the line for me, I lost faith in who I was. And I desire to offer that hope to other parents that hang on.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many people out there that are foster parents or are considering that, maybe, in folks listening to the podcast today. Talk about some of the incredible things that you guys saw, because you really saw kids, like you said, deeply wounded, traumatized kids really begin to come alive under your care. And I'm sure that was really, really just a beautiful thing for you and for them. But any stories around that, or that were just really like, man, this really exemplifies?
Well, I tell a lot of those stories in the book. I tell some of the hard stories, but I also tell a lot of the stories of things where either we did something right or God just used it anyway.
Thank you, Lord. Right.
But I tell a story in there about a teenage girl that we had, that when she lived in our home, she was in my face, and I mean physically in my face. And she challenged us at every turn for everything. And we just kept moving along, just trying to do what the Lord was calling us to do, and to encourage her and to, help her along. And she moved on, and several years after that, we were coming home from a camping trip, and the phone rang. I didn't recognize it, and it was her.
Wow.
And living in another state now. She has children. of her own, and that because she gave that, that was a different part of her life. So she has children of her own now, and she was talking to me about how favorable it was to live in her home and how we had helped her and loved her. And
Wow.
I was I was shocked, really, because I don't remember it that way. But to hear her say that it was a turning point in her life was just, gosh, that makes it all worthwhile, because there were so many stories that the children didn't receive what we offered them,
Right.
and things didn't turn out like we had hoped they had. So there's another story about a young, he was also a teenager. I always taught the kids how to make a one pot meal that I make, dirty rice and kielbasa, and so that they can have one meal under their belt.
Right.
And he, I can't do it, we're gonna die from the food. He went on and on, and I tell a story about how the food was delicious, but I had mistakenly put his medicine on my plate for some reason. I don't even remember why. So when he put the food on my plate, it covered up that pill. We didn't see it. And I took a bite, and immediately when I realized that it was in my mouth, I spit it out. And of course he's hollering, "I told you it was awful." Well, after he left our home, I saw in the newspaper an article about him. He had enrolled in a local program to cook in their
Wow.
school, in their culinary program, and he was like their poster child for that. And
Incredible.
I just think, I like to think that God used that seed that we planted to maybe awaken something within him, because he had never cooked before he came to
Wow.
my.
Wow. Well, and you as an artist being able to see what they're interested in and bring in creativity in different ways to awaken their hearts. And it's just beautiful. I just love it that you're in this season of your life, you're able to not only do the things you love artistically, but also God's bringing this other part of your life that you thought was over. He's bringing that back around for round two now to speak into other people's lives. And what is that like? And what is your hope, I guess, for this next season of this journey? How do you think all this is going to come together? Any thoughts about that?
Well, I didn't realize it until a few months ago, but I do mentoring, and I teach teenage girls art. I teach adults as well. But after about the third girl that was coming to my home, the Lord just, made me realize they were all adopted children. I didn't go out looking for kids that had lived in an arena where I was familiar with. God brought them to me.
Wow.
And that was just, when I realized that, it was like, wow. And so I began seeking out some other places to teach students that have either been adopted or in foster care, to kind of pull that all together, because I understand that world. I've lived in it. And unless you've lived in it, it's kind of hard to understand that. I know that sounds kind of weird, but
yeah, but God's uniquely equipped you for that population of people, and how wonderful is that he does this with all of us, right? That we're uniquely. It's like me with kudzu baskets. It's like, who likes kudzu but Matt Tommy? But but that's the unique thing that God gave me to do what I do. So
right. Well, I've also had opportunity to do some art with at conferences that are for it's family conferences for adoptive families, and just it's really fun to see how he's weaving it all together, because when that season ended, it was such a hard season. It was a hard season. And so I felt like, whew, okay, Lord, I've been obedient, because the Lord clearly, I was in worship one Sunday, and I had my hands raised, and I wasn't thinking about anything but the Lord. And the Lord clearly said to my spirit, "You are released from foster care."
Wow.
And that was just wow, because it was a hard season.
Yeah.
It was a good season, but it was hard.
Yeah.
So, to see that he would continue to use that has been unexpected, really.
Yeah. Well, I think the Lord always requires that of us, right? We got to let go of what we've had in order to take hold of what is in the future. And I always, just like you, it's kind of like you think that season is over, but really what's happening is the Lord's kind of just reinventing it and that thing's probably going to be in your life, but just in a different way. And he's going to use it in a different way and a more fruitful way. Even it's like that pruning that's not always comfortable, but it's required. And Julie, it's just so good to see all that God's doing in your life and that you just, continue to say yes. I think, isn't that the key, right? Just keep saying yes. And even though you don't know the whole journey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saying yes to this podcast was a huge deal. I don't know what the Lord is going to do with the book.
Yeah.
I am excited though. And I feel like it's really going to be something really cool. It's actually not published yet. But I'm super close. The cover is being designed as we speak, and the editing's all done. And
awesome.
I had no idea what it takes to write a book.
But now you do. That's great. Well, I know folks are going to want to connect with you, see your artwork when the book is ready to come out. They want to see that. So tell everybody about your website, the best place to connect with you on social media and that sort of thing.
Well, it's juliebagamy.com. Bagamary is Bagamary. And I just had a pop-up put on my website for people to connect about the book.
Nice.
And my art is there. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. So
good stuff. Well, Julie, what a pleasure to know you and to see the incredible journey that God's had you on and continue to have you on. And I know it's been a big inspiration for everybody listening today. So thanks for being on.
Thank you so much, Matt. I so appreciate this opportunity.